About a month ago, my husband and I drove back to Indiana to visit our family, and I had a very ulterior motive in mind at the same time. I was determined that this time I was going to talk with my parents. I was going to insist that they move in with us down in Florida, and I wasn't taking no for an answer. And guess what? They actually said yes. It had taken a lot of work on my part to be prepared because I had listened to them say no to me in conversations for years. But mom turns 90 this fall. Dad turned 88 just a few months ago. And I just decided it was time. It all started with a fall and a really messy kitchen. And I'm telling you all this for a reason, because nowadays it seems like there are a lot of buyers that are more than just empty nesters. They have Boomerang kids, whether they're still young adults or even older adults who, due to life circumstances, are suddenly moving back in with mom and dad, or mom and dad are moving in with their mom and dad. Whether it's both or one, you just never know. But the simple fact of the matter is it's happening more and more and more. It may mean more living spaces needed, or more bedrooms are needed, or whatever the circumstances are. But after thinking it through, I really decided that this was a great idea for a video series to help people understand the decisions that go into it, some of the steps we took to be prepared for it, and how we do in the actual transition into moving in together. My name is Lee Johnson, and I'm with Brownfield Real Estate Group. I am a realtor, and I made this YouTube channel because I really wanted to help people that were moving long distance into considering moving into Florida to think about the Palm Bay Space Coast area that didn't necessarily have the time or the funds to do that trip down here to do investigating if they were going to have to come back down to look at houses or buy clothes on a house or whatever it is. Some people just don't have the time or the ability to come down multiple times to make the decision on where they're going to live. So a YouTube channel is a great way to help with that. I do a lot of the legwork, a lot of the research. I create these videos, and you get to watch them at your leisure, and hopefully it helps you make that decision. If you like what you see, I hope you'll take the time to go down below and hit the like and subscribe buttons. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions or any comments about the video, things you'd like to see in the future. And in the meantime, let's get back to this video and talk about what's going to be coming up. So mom and dad moved to Indiana to come be close to us and the other family members that lived in the area a little over 10 years ago. They had retired out to Montana and lived out their life dream of having 35 acres on the side of a mountain and just loved every minute of it. But they were a good 40-minute drive from the nearest hospital, or at least the nearest good hospital. And they just decided that it was a long trip for any of us to be able to get out to them should something actually happen. And it was time to be closer to family. So 10 years ago, they moved to Indiana. About a year and a half ago, mom took a fall and she broke her pelvis. But we didn't know that for several days. So I flew home at a moment's notice to check in on them, see how they were doing, and what was going to be needed in the long term. I could only stay for a few days, but on that trip, mom had been out of the hospital for about 3 days. My dad has dementia. He's still in really good shape considering, but he is also getting older. He and mom, have been married for over 60 years, and he's used to mom cooking and cleaning and doing all those kinds of things. So having all that thrust upon him all of a sudden was a bit of a wake-up call for him, and not one that he was ready to handle. So to me, that's a pretty dangerous situation, and it really got me thinking. Number one, the fact that she had fallen and broken her pelvis. Number two, that dad just wasn't up to taking care of her. So I went home from that trip, and like I said, it was a year and a half ago. I'm a little on the slow side when it comes to thinking about stuff like that. But in that time, my husband, who was still recovering from having a bout of cancer on himself, finally was to the point where he could get a job. We live in 1,500 square feet that is cozy at best. We both have offices there. The kitchen is quite small. And then trying to add mom and dad to that house, I just didn't see it working because they're both very active adults considering their age. They like living their own lives. They have a social life as well, but they needed a little bit more than what living alone was going to ever give them. So I made the decision that it was time for them to move in with me, whether or not they were really ready to. So when we went up to Indiana, I armed myself with a lot of information. I had done a ton of research throughout Palm Bay to kind of figure out what was the right living situation for them or for us. However it was going to work out. I looked at larger homes. I looked at homes that were close to us that they could live in and be nearer to us. I looked at lots and lots of options. And then I found what was perfect for us. Lennar is building a 55 plus community. In that community, they have a house that they have a next gen suite. A lot of people think of it as being an in-law suite, but they're calling it a next-gen suite, which I think is really pretty brilliant, because for someone my age could very well have an adult child that's moving back in that wants their own space, but doesn't have the money to be able to afford their own home. So this is a 2,600 square foot home. It's a beautiful house, and yet it still has about an 800 square foot apartment in it with a kitchenette, with a living room and bedroom area, and of course bathroom. It's not huge, but it's doable, especially knowing that the house is right there. It gives us a place to escape, because actually we're going to take the next gen suite. Mom and dad are home full time, of course, and my husband and I both work full time. So it made a lot of sense at this point, at least, to put mom and dad in the main part of the house and put us in the next gen suite. But it was perfect, because not only is the house great, but the neighborhood is very family friendly for older adults. Lots of people, not only my age, but a number of people that are my folks' age. The amenity center with tennis and bocce ball and pickleball and swimming and classes that are going to be going on. It's not done being built yet, but it will be very, very shortly. And I liked all of that for them to be able to have a place to go meet up with friends, things to do, a great way to get to know people in the neighborhood. And then the other really neat thing that I like about it, they're going to have to be a little bit patient, but there's a Publix being built that's either going to be ready about the same time that we're moving in or very soon thereafter. So there's a Publix and a gas station and everything going in just south of us by about a mile. And then north of us by about 2.5 miles is going to be an outdoor mall. It's in the infrastructure stage, so it probably won't be, far enough along to be able to use for another year or so, but it's all there, which means I get to take away those car keys and hand them the keys to a golf cart and feel much more comfortable that they are safe, and I don't have to worry every time I get a notification that dad has left the house. Because right now it completely freaks me out, because he's still driving, and he's a good driver. He was in the car business for his entire career, but all it takes is one momentary. I got hit by an older gentleman just a couple of weeks ago who, he said his foot slipped off the pedal, and all I could do was look at that man and see my dad, and that really made me nervous. So anyway, I came prepared with all that information on different options of homes. I also called a realtor friend of mine in Indiana that I thought would do a fabulous job in potentially selling my folks' house. I also knew that it needed some work in the house, so I started working on arrangements for painters and possibly carpeting. I did some research on the flooring. So I had all of this information at hand, so I could walk in and go, look, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, and we're going to move right now. And amazingly enough, that's exactly how it happened. We arrived on Saturday, and by Sunday night, they had said yes. And by Wednesday, I had painters there. The realtor had already been there, and we had discussed a price. And by the time that we left the following Saturday, we were under contract with Lennar here in Palm Bay. So they're building our house. It'll be ready mid-August, which gives us, from the time that happened until the time we move in, it gave us about 4 months. Plenty of time for mom and dad to get everything packed and prepared for the sale, and then us to be ready to sell our house as well, because of course we have 2 houses to sell and 1 house to buy. So that will take a bit of work. Of course, I'm very lucky in that my folks are living in an area that they live in a highly sought after neighborhood. I know the realtor that we are going to be working with is really exceptional, and I'm confident that that house will sell very easily. It just so happens that we also had an offer from somebody who lives just down the road. So it may already be sold even, but at worst, I'm confident that it will be sold with ease with this really great realtor I know in Indiana. My husband was very supportive. Of course, that's a very important point, is to make sure that 2 of you sit down and talk and make sure that you're on the same page in terms of not only what I had in mind, but what he saw as our future. Fortunately, my husband loves my folks. He's always kind of thought of them as his second mom and dad. So when I presented all this to him and told him how concerned I was about them living so far away, he immediately said yes. But of course, that is a very important conversation. Even if it's one of your kids that you're talking about moving back in, you have to be prepared. Once you're an empty nester, you kind of fall in love with that life again. You're not responsible to anybody else. You can go out for dinner and do whatever you want to on the weekends and not have to worry about a babysitter or telling the kids or making arrangements for the dog or whatever it is. You're ready to go. And now all of a sudden you have somebody else to worry about. And are they going to help pay the expenses, or are you going to help to pay for everything? How exactly is this going to work? And that's actually one of the points I want to make is, after we had agreed, one of the first things that my mom and I did was sit down and talk about finances. and who was going to pay for how much of the house and how was that going to work. And we're going to split expenses pretty much 50-50 in terms of the house expenses. Fortunately, they're going to sell their house for a very nice amount of money, which is going to put a considerable amount of money in their pockets because they don't have a mortgage currently. So they, even though they are on a limited income, I'm going to give them probably another $200,000 in their pockets with the sale on their house. So they're in a good place. But again, regardless of whether it's a kid or a parent, you do need to make sure that financially you all can handle this from an expenses standpoint, from an overhead standpoint in terms of expenses for the house, who pays for food, who does the cooking, all those things. I do recommend that you get it in writing. I'm not saying that it's a contract that you guys have to stick to, and God forbid you make a change, but when you write it down, you have an agreement. You've thought it out carefully. And that's really the most important part of it, is to make sure that everybody has thought about this and thought about what it really means, and how you're going to move forward together, working together to make this a successful living situation for everyone. So what happens next? As I said, our house is being built right now. I'm getting ready to put my house on the market. We have already had a garage sale. I have gotten rid of a lot of clutter in my house, and I'll put some pictures of our garage sale and what our house looked like before and what it looks like now in preparation for selling. Because it does take some decluttering sometimes. And when we moved down here, we brought too much furniture with us. So I had to get rid of some. And since we're moving into yet a smaller house because we're going to get the suite, I got rid of a lot of stuff, which makes the house look much more livable, much more appealing to a wider variety of buyers. So photographer comes on Tuesday. It'll be listed at the end of next week. And I'm really looking forward to getting that on the market. It's about a 3 to 6 month sell down in Palm Bay right now, which means that obviously there's a really good chance that we're going to move into the new house before our house got sold. So that was part of our agreement with my folks as well, was how we're going to handle that time span when I can't pay 2 mortgages. So how we're going to do that, and then how we'll move forward from there as well. Again, open communication is extraordinarily important. Do not make assumptions because they'll come back and bite you pretty hard. I learned that the hard way when we talked about doing this a number of years ago, and then it kind of backfired because none of us were really prepared for what it was going to take. So as I said, I am going to document this throughout the process. We're going to talk through a variety of things through this series. One of the things I'm going to do is show you a variety of builders that have options in terms of larger living spaces for more than one family or generation in the house. Some have full-blown suites like what we're moving into. Some of them are much smaller suites, and some of them are just an extra bedroom and bathroom. But it kind of helps to know what the availability is and how you go about making that decision. I was really lucky. My folks literally did this sight unseen. They didn't fly down to see the house or anything. They just said, you know what? We trust you. We believe you. We're ready to move forward with this and know that it's the right option for us. So that was a really great thing. But anyway, that's enough talking for me for this time. But as I said, we're going to talk about what kind of options there are for multi-generational living, how you make the decisions on splitting up the house and splitting up the expenses. I'm going to talk about what there is for multiple generations to do from a social standpoint in Palm Bay. And I'm sure a number of other things will come up as we go through this. And I'll also kind of document what it's like for us that hopefully maybe will help you guys learn a little bit along the way as well. I've had a lot of fun watching our house being built, and I hope you do too, because I'll include pictures as we go. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you again the next time around.